briefly.
Recording in
Also give us
progress.
enough time to make sure that we have room for the reframe discussion. I do think it's important that we have those initial recommendations for the planning commission and select board. But like Gordon said, now that we are in the middle of crunch time for town plan, we can be as prepared as possible. But it's not going to go anywhere right now until that town plan is approved. So, anyway, let's talk about our subgroups and committees. So the first one is the development planning. Tim is not here. Leon's not here. John, you're on that one as well, right?
Yeah, I'm on that one, but I know in speaking with Tim, he was meeting with the owner at Airport Road.
Yep.
And I don't know whether he had that meeting, because that was the meeting that was gonna kind of give us a sense of whether there was gonna be an ability to cross their lands with the sewer. So I'm not so sure whether that meeting took place. Do you know, Gordon, whether he met with them?
I know that he met and spoke with the owner of that. You're talking about the hangar.
I'm sorry, we can't hear you quite down here. Who are you talking to?
The owner of the hangar, of the airport hangar up there.
Okay, thank you.
So there is a line, just for everyone, there's a sewer line that goes to that property.
Oh, here he is.
Oh, look.
There he is.
Oh, they both are.
Made it.
Move down that way just a
Yeah,
touch.
yeah.
I see.
So it's perfect timing. We were just discussing development planning committee. So we were just kind of looking at an update on whether you had met with the owners of the airport property hangar about the sewer.
Dr. Levis.
Oh, have not yet. Nope.
And just also for clarification, one of the issues that came up last meeting was also the discussion about the potential conservation land that is out there. And actually Joanne and I caught wind of it when we were on a meeting with Jake from the state, not from State Farm. But and he pointed out that there was a portion that was on the map that was conservation land. And after we've gone through, Gordon, I think we've come down to it's like 6 acres. And that was a transfer from the the track.
Yeah.
Yeah, in front of like near the Catholic church, that was traded for conservation land up in the airport for like a town park. So it's not, there was a concern that it was a large portion, but it's 6 of the 60 acres.
And so regarding that then, were we going to continue with Jake and try to move on with that proposal to expand?
Well, I think we certainly do.
NDA?
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
nothing,
Okay,
there's
so
nothing
that's-
worried about that.
Okay, so that was what, March or April? You
Yes.
said?
Yeah.
So we'd have to work on that and get that application in there.
Yeah, so one of the things that we met with Jake about was looking at the expansion potentially of those designations. Right? So that could open up the ability to, even before the changes come, in 2 years for the changing of the, it's like,
Strange breeze.
yeah, it started, I felt it too. It's even moving the cobwebs up there. Carl, it's your fault. No.
Strong winds.
So excuse me. Before the changes in Act 250 come, with redesignation as the town planning maps and how those are going to change what designations we currently have, meaning like they're going to be renamed, all of those things. There's still time for us to potentially amend our existing designation.
designation.
Doesn't it change our zoning? Doesn't change any of that. It just qualifies us for what is potentially has those interim exemptions for Act 250, which would help the airport property. So,
But that's still two years out.
no.
What is?
No.
No.
So what we talked to Jake Hemrick at the state, is that if we have, and he's provided some other examples of how this has been done in the time leading up to this new change, we could still apply for an amendment. And the next meeting is sometime in March or in April or May. And it could be approved and then we
Yeah.
could have it sooner rather than later.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And that he provided us with a sample. He
Mhm.
actually did some of the amendment filing. He filled in the form.
Yeah,
remember?
he did a lot of the
He did a lot of
legwork,
prep
so
work for us.
it's something we're gonna collectively look at and, just kind of bring this as an opportunity potentially for the planning commission to apply. So funding and grants,
Not much.
yeah, I think, we
We
talked,
might not get any.
well, I mean, we talked about last time that there was a small mini grant. That's on pause.
Yeah. And we did not get the one that I applied for, which was just filling out that little application. We didn't get that.
Okay.
We got denied that.
Okay. What I have done, and this kind of goes into the next section, is that I've started to put the framework together for the website,
Mhm.
a website, to bring a lot of this stuff together, very similar framework to Carl's and the energy committees. And, by our next meeting, we should have a pretty good first draft that we can all go in and take a look at. And, the goal obviously is to give as many resources that we've provided, we pull together between our collective agencies, departments, research, all of those things, as well as connective tissue between our processes here. And then eventually we'll be able to hopefully put together, those pre-designed plans, or, if you're from this address, you pop in your address and this is what's available for you. Those are all, more long-term things, but stuff that we absolutely want to get in place.
Jonathan, if you don't mind me
Yeah.
asking, that document that you created, is that somewhere in our shared drive? And no one's
The
called-
kind of, yes, it should be. And if it's not, I will
Just curious
reshare.
where you might have placed it, because we have a couple of categories and I couldn't find it, so.
This was the, so the original one that I did. Well, you're talking about the housing data summary and recommendations?
I think that might be the one.
Because there's that one, and there's also the one that Joanne and I have been pecking away at, which is the, but this is the one,
Yeah,
Here.
that one.
so I can give you this copy for now. I do have it. If I don't, I will share it.
Oh, okay, that's okay. I was just
Yeah.
thinking if it's in here, we can all access it without
Yeah.
a printed copy.
And speaking of grants, if that offsite, now they're offsite that we frame, there was a section in that document that I think I shared with everyone, offsite designations and offsite builders.
Hmm.
And there's a section in there about potential grants and things that would be available to offsite builders. So that would be good to know. Include in the thing that we're putting together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So who's doing the presentation from Reframe?
It's Sean McCabe, who's the consultant with them, and Jessica Boatwright.
Okay,
She's the head of their business development.
okay. So we did tell them 6:00.
6:00, yeah.
So let's move to number 5 so that we can make sure that they're prepared. So number 5, we've had this on the list for quite a while. Originally, the intent was, let's get some initial recommendations to the planning commission that could potentially have been included in the town plan. The town plan that is currently processed to be approved. No real changes are being placed in that town plan at all. However, and that's out of necessity to ensure that the town plan actually gets done. There's like this much breathing room between it not being completed in time. So any hiccup in it could fall on the wayside.
So say that again, they're not going to have any housing section in?
No, there's still going to be the exact same content that the housing section already had, but there's not going to be any new language.
Okay.
Anything that was required from the state's requirements around Home Act, those will be placed in there. However, it's not going to be, any new discussions that we have from this group or recommendations that the planning commission might have as well. And that's just to hit the guideline, hit the deadline. But I do know,
Deadline, so it's prepared to be voted on, you mean?
yeah, so.
I'm just curious which deadline you're
So
referring to.
So the town plan expires May 8th.
Okay.
And if you work backwards from May 8th for public hearings, for both the select board and the planning commission, we're already pretty darn close to hitting that wall.
Yep.
But I do believe there, I mean, I know there was, I think in the last select board meeting, we were discussing the grant, already preparing for the grant for the next town plan, right?
Right. I've started the preparation to try to get a new grant
Mm.
for the next town plan. And we'll see what happens with that. And in theory, there may be room for some little adjustments. I mean, there's public meetings that will take place.
Sure.
And the point of those public meetings is to get input, and if they need to
Mhm.
change something, they will, but it's unlikely that an entire new section is going to be added. Is my guess.
Yeah.
From what I've heard, and
Leon.
Leon can address that better than I can. He's on the-
I was reading this sheet. I missed that.
So
But it got printed and sent out today to all the surrounding towns. It's a document. It's
Oh, is it?
just in the works.
Okay.
yeah. Yeah. So, I think we use the next 2 cycles of meetings to prepare. I expect to have a more precise set of like takeaways, not today, but I'll convey them over to you guys. Kind of as to finally prepare for the next meeting. Like, let's literally get serious over the next, not that we haven't been, but let's really get serious over the next 2 meeting cycles. So that we have it ready, so that when the town plan is, we can look on beyond the town plan, this initial town plan, we can already have everything keyed up for what the next steps are. So the next item is discuss recommendations to the select board for use of funds from potential sale of Depot Street property. We didn't discuss this last meeting. I know the previous housing task force, John Burnham,
Yeah.
What's
you
that?
discussed this, right?
Recommendations to the
yeah.
select board? Yeah.
Yeah. And do you want to?
I don't remember what we were gonna recommend. I think if you went back to the sale of the property in particular, is that what the one you're speaking of?
Yeah.
Because it was potentially a topic back then, and again, very generically, what we were gonna ask them to do is set a certain side of the money of the sale aside for one idea was to either use it to purchase another piece of property that could be used to help develop affordable workforce housing. And the other was that money would be set aside for grants and stuff for ADUs, that sort of thing that happened like in Woodstock where they had these $10,000 grants to help support that. Those were a couple of ideas. I don't know if you remember landing on one.
I think it probably all rolled into the idea of creating a housing trust fund
Mhm.
that would
That's right.
have some flexibility.
Mhm.
So in theory, it could be used for infrastructure. It
Yeah.
could be used for $10,000
Yeah.
or whatever the number would be, ADU grants or whatever it might be.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But that.
I mean, I would-
There was actually even a kind of a boilerplate trust agreement.
Trust
type
agreement.
thing that-
Yes, there was. Yeah.
But it never really went anywhere. I'd have to pull that back out. I know I have.
Did you by any chance catch what, Carl, I think you might have actually sent this to me. It was on VT Digger this past 2 days ago. Orleans County, there's several municipalities in Orleans County that are working on putting together a land trust. They just had the nonprofit formed, and the idea is that this would guarantee the affordability of those homes in perpetuity by using that land.
There were 4 towns, like
Yep.
Glover, Craftsbury, Albany, and another one.
Yeah, I think anything we do should have that included, some sort of a land trust where we control the house is not becoming just more Airbnbs or short-term
Mm.
rentals.
Or flipped
Or
or.
flipped right away to make more
Mm.
money, sold for
Mhm,
twice the
mhm.
price.
And the other piece of the story of why they were doing this, by the way, was exactly the same reasons that we are talking. You know, the concern is that year-round rentals and folks who want to stay in the communities that they've either grown up in or want to continue living there, they are being priced out of the market. So the sale, we've reached the point where the sale has passed its,
The due diligence period is
Right.
over.
That's gonna
It's
happen.
moving forward.
yeah. So now it's coming down to just the potential closing, which, you know, probably could be in the next 30 to 60 days. Ish.
Somewhere around the beginning of April.
Okay. So, you know, I think even at its basic, that we should probably discuss making a recommendation to the select board to a reason why we should proportion, at least at minimum, a section of that money for X. Whether we just say it's for housing project fund or a housing fund, whatever we want to call it. And then whether we want to make further recommendations on it should be for grants or any of those things, you know, we can make that determination. Tim, you said,
Just look, thinking about, I've been looking at a lot of properties in a lot of places in town. And in my mind, the only viable property that affordable would be the airport.
right,
Because there's so many other places out there that, I mean, we say there's grants or whatever, but if a developer or a person is going to buy a piece of property, they're gonna have to spend, $300,000-$400,000 on a piece of property. They're gonna figure that's the price. And not knowing if they're going to get a grant, if someone said, if you said, okay, you buy this piece of property for $300,000, I'm gonna give you a $150,000 grant, that's a different story.
right.
But not knowing what the grants, if you're even going to get the grants, you apply for them, you might not get them. So when you're trying to put a budget together to do a project, you're going on the actual cost. You're not, if grants come in, great. That would be an extra. And it could go towards the prospective buyer or however that works. But that's the good thing in my mind about the airport is because the town owns it. And if something was going to be built there
Aha moment there,
and grants came in,
right?
you take a piece of property, you're gonna start with 10 houses, 5 houses, 10 houses, whatever the number is. And if grants come in, the grants would go back to the town to help pay for the property. And I would think that because right at this point in time, there's no sewer up there or water, it's close. And I don't know, we still haven't found out from our engineer what the actual, unless we did in the last day or two, find out what the actual capacity is
That pump station,
on that pump station.
Mhm.
Are we 80%, 90%, 110%? What are we? Because that would be the easiest start.
right?
If we could run down the road there, not maiden form, it's a free, whatever,
Natural form way.
natural form way. Natural form way, then that would be a win because it's not that far from the existing water and sewer that's there to the property. And maybe we could have a portion of the sale of town property go towards sewer, whether it's, going that way or going north towards maybe Peckham property. I don't know. I just don't. But I think the easiest, quickest way to start is on a piece of property the town has. And a developer's not gonna have to come in and spend a lot of money to purchase the property and pay the interest on it. Because it's gonna be, if you wanna come in at $225,000 for a house, it's tough.
Yeah.
And
What, so the RFP for the airport property, that did get published, right?
Yes.
Have we received any
Not yet, but they're not due yet.
Okay.
And I I know everybody here probably knows, I don't know. But anybody listening to this, we keep talking about it as the airport property. There is no airport. It's a beautiful piece of property.
Right.
It used to have a grass landing strip.
Correct.
But if somebody who didn't know was listening to this, you'd think, oh my, you're gonna put housing out by the airport. What's that? There are no planes that land there.
It's a piece of property.
It's a beautiful piece of property. I do know that the past select board, the discussion was somewhere in the vicinity of $500,000. But, you know, the makeup of the select board changes. I don't, you know, and it may change again. And I have no idea what the new select board might decide. But they were always talking about somewhere in that $500,000.
The entire parcel.
No, for an amount to be put aside.
Yeah.
Okay.
So whether it was in some kind of an actual trust document or just kind of informally aside, that's
For the 3 commercial buildings.
from the sale of the from the
Okay.
3 commercial.
Right.
buildings.
And by the way, I found our guidelines for Manchester Housing Trust Fund, and I just sent them all to you
Oh.
from when we created them. I mean, we never actually got to the point of presenting them to the select board because we were disbanded before that point, but we created a fairly it's only about a 4 or 5 page document that kind of goes through what the Housing Trust Fund is and who's responsible. Ultimately, you know, it's the select board's and decision on what happens, but it's a way to help guide whatever monies are put into that to housing. And again, if you get a chance to read it, you can look through it, and, you know, the next time.
And I think the idea is to be flexible because some developer might come up with a concept that we hadn't thought of that would make perfect sense.
And that's why when you were talking about even just, I don't know if anywhere in here we talked about infrastructure, you know, whether we talked about sewer lines or water lines to have funds go to help develop that to, anyway, so that could be added that we don't even have in here, so.
So does it make sense, Gordon, to kind of re-up that, the old select board's thought of that 500,000? I mean, if we're talking about recommendations, is that a recommendation that should be reconsidered maybe?
I mean, if
How much
I'm not
is it
speaking
selling
on
for,
behalf
by
on the
way?
select board, and not, you know, not speaking on behalf of the select board. If I had my way, I would say
All of it.
take all of the money and put it towards housing. I know that's not
Right.
realistic.
Yeah. How much is that being sold for?
That's what I was gonna ask. Like, maybe there should be a percentage.
Well, you gotta remember, there's a difference between sale price and what's net.
Right.
Yeah, I'm
So
sorry.
it's one,
So it's 1.65.
Right.
yeah.
And by the time you pay the Realtor fee, there's been some work that we've had to do on a sprinkler system and a furnace in one of the buildings. The rest of it's been in pretty good shape. You know, it's gonna be 1.5, a little
Yeah.
bit more, maybe 1.55 or somewhere in that range.
And do we know what they're gonna do with it? No?
I think it's gonna remain commercial for now.
Right.
Oh.
And then there may be something in the future. There may be some residential that is not even in those 3 buildings. I really don't know.
So getting back to
Time
the,
will tell.
getting back to the recommendation then, John, does it make sense to consider that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
If not more.
And if not more, I think you're right. I mean, I do think the last time it was 1.8. Was that what the,
It was.
Something like
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Gordon, Sean's in the waiting room.
and yes, I do keep feeling that very warm breeze.
It's coming, it's because it's coming through.
It's coming through those louvers, right?
The wind blows.
Yeah,
There's wind.
they're frozen over.
So,
Well, when somebody opens up the front door,
ah,
somehow causes that,
there you go.
because it's such a tight building, right, Carl?
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, we don't have to make this recommendation right now because the closing would not happen likely until after our next meeting. I think if we collectively on the next, on our next agenda for the March meeting, we make it, you know, possibly adopt the statement or the recommendation for the select board, and make that official, and then we could present that to the select board.
I can circulate again that, kind of a roughed out
Yeah.
grant proposal,
Mhm.
or not a grant proposal, a trust proposal,
That's what I
just for people.
Was that the
That's what I
trust? or the
just-
Oh, did you just send it?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
You all have it.
Is it the same one?
It's the one that we drafted. Yeah, I found it in our old archive.
Was this the land, what you, was it, because you said two different things. There was a land trust. No,
It's
this is the housing trust.
Housing
fund?
Trust Fund?
Okay, yeah. Yes, no, that's, yeah, because I was there for the Woodstock presentation, which was.
Yeah, which is how, we kind of mirrored that a little bit in what we're trying to create because, you know, this doesn't have an employee as they did hired a part-time person to manage it, but you got to look at that. If it's $1 million or 500, who, you know, who's going to?
We looked at a few different
Yeah.
grant, or excuse me, trust. There was one that I thought was good actually from, I think it was Manchester, New Hampshire, believe it or not. But then there was one in Montpelier and there was the one in Woodstock, and we looked at those and kind of kept it
There's a
simple.
very large one now in Stowe too, but that's more for conservation rather than anything else.
But it might not be a bad idea to get some type of ballpark number to them sooner rather than later. Because the sooner we get it in, you don't know who else might want to.
That's true.
I mean, I would say, you know, 50%, 75%, we come up with a percentage.
Yeah,
And
then that.
I'd rather get in sooner rather than later, give it to them at the next meeting rather than wait, because someone else might come in and say, oh, let's do this. I'm just saying, as far as our board's concerned, I'd rather be on top of the game rather than wait till.
I'm fine with that. I mean, this is a recommendation. This is not anything.
No, it's not,
binding.
it's just a recommendation. The sooner we do it, I think, the longer you wait, so it's just no sense waiting.
I mean, again, I personally, I want to see as much devoted to housing as possible. I do know that there is, you know, a discussion from the select board side specifically around, you know, replenishing some of the reserve funds that have been depleted over the last few years or over many years, but
Can we make a recommendation
Yeah.
that it's like 65%? I know y'all want 100, but it's realistically, the town's gonna want some for other things, like 65% of it. Of the net, you know, right after. Or do you guys want to go higher?
I think 65 is.
I think it's
high.
I would say 50.
55 is 100, is a million.
I would say 50% would be a fair,
I agree,
because it's 50-50. We're splitting it with you.
exactly.
Splitting it. It's their money in the end.
No, I know.
And if you go for 65 and they negotiate down to 50,
but the
then you
reality
have
is-
Well, there you
50, they
go.
might go down to 40 or 30.
Okay.
But if they don't use it, they get it back anyway. There
I
could
know,
be a
it's all-
time, there could be a time placed around this from the standpoint that, you know, there's a release at a certain point.
Yep.
You know, you could also make the point that the reason why we are also recommending more than was previously recommended is that the cost of the
Construction's gone
actual
up.
construction continues, you know, it didn't drop and it's going to continue to get more expensive. And if we have to tackle this, we have to be more aggressive in what we're recommending. So, I mean, I'm fine with putting something together. You don't really need to make a motion, I don't think, but are we in agreement that we should go for a 50% recommendation and say that we're recommending this because of the need for housing? And there are many ways which this 50% could be utilized. However, you know, those are still ideas that we could continue to discuss and
Right.
the best way to utilize it. All right? Yeah, I know.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Well, that's
Okay.
good. We have something to cross off the list. That.
Goody.
All right, so we're gonna go back up to number 4, and I want to welcome a few folks on the Zoom session, Sean McCabe, Jessica Boatwright. They are from a company
Reframe
called
system.
Reframe Systems from our neighbors to the south in Massachusetts.
Hi, Sean.
Hey, good evening.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Thanks for having us, Joanne.
Really excited to have you present to us.
Yes.
And Jessica as well.
Yes,
Is she on?
Jessica's on as well.
There she
Thanks for
is.
having us.
Yeah.
Yes, we're glad to have you. We're very excited to learning all about your products.
Sure. Well, we take every opportunity that's presented to us to talk about it. So
Good.
it's great
The
to
floor
be
is
here.
yours.
Well, we're all
Yeah,
ears,
sure.
so why don't you take over and give us
Sure.
an idea of what
Um,
you've got?
Sure. We've got some slides that I'll run through in a sec. Just as an intro, as I mentioned, every opportunity we have to talk about how Reframe is reimagining home building, we take it. We have a couple big issues we're trying to address with our solution, and that's the housing and the climate crises, both that we're facing. And we think our solution helps address both of those. By way of introduction, I'm Sean McCabe. I'm on the business development team at Reframe. We are based in Andover. We're a little over 2 years old from our founding. I am a recent addition to the team there. My background's in utility scale wind farm development. I actually started my career in Rutland, Vermont at a little company called Catamount Energy, which was a subsidiary of Central Vermont Public Service back in the late early 2000s. And we used to have our company symposium every fall at the Equinox in Manchester down there. So I've been to your community several times. And then Jessica's my colleague. She's the head of business development and strategy. I'll let her introduce herself.
So as Sean said, I head up business development and strategy for Reframe. I've been here for about a year. Prior to that, worked for all of my career in planning and development, but more specifically for the last 20 years, I've been on both the public finance side and the development side of affordable housing. Most recently running the affordable housing program at the city of Boston, and then working with a few different developers, and really excited. I wanted to come in person, especially so I could go to one of my favorite bookstores in the country, but I'm glad we're here on Zoom, and maybe we'll find a reason to come up in person soon.
Yeah, hopefully.
Always invited.
Great. So I'm going to share my screen, run through some slides here. Let's see.
It should be
You
automatic.
should be able to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here we go. Okay, you see that, Lily?
We only see the menu bar of your browser.
Ah. No. Just the menu bar.
Yeah, maybe try it in present mode, or you can. I can try to share it too if I can find it.
Yeah. Of that.
There we
There
go.
you go. Perfect.
Actually, I'm not a full screen it. So we're here to talk about Reframe Systems and our approach to building homes in our autonomous microfactories. We're producing climate resilient, low carbon, high performance homes, which I think will be a key takeaway of this. This is not sort of old style manufactured homes. It's built to a very high quality and high energy efficient standard. So our mission fundamentally is to solve, as I mentioned, climate and housing crises that are happening in parallel here by building low carbon homes at a lower cost, faster, and at a high quality for all. Sounds like a lot to take on, and it is. And I think if you were to talk to people at Reframe, they're up to the challenge, and we are all up to the challenge. And it's a big one, but we need to kind of reimagine how we're doing things, because what we've been doing so far has not been working. The housing production crisis that you're all familiar with, I mean, you wouldn't have a task force if there wasn't a problem in Manchester, as there is all over the country. We have a shortage, of homes that are not being built. Part of it is rising construction costs. They're not being built affordably. We have a shortage of labor in the trades, which is forecast to only get worse. So that's affecting construction costs as well. We're also dealing with new and higher building standards, particularly in the form of energy efficiency. So all of those kind of variables and factors are contributing to us just having less supply in the market and therefore higher costs. So fortunately, Reframes has a solution that is coming at times when communities like yours, like Manchester, with a task force that you're open to new solutions. And Cambridge, Massachusetts, a city that comes to mind for me here in my home state, who just this week eliminated single family zoning in their city. So communities are recognizing the need to relax their zoning regulations. And I think in doing so are creating an opportunity to build more infill, kind of like gentle density housing. So that's kind of the situation we're in. Our solution is, again, it's building high quality attainable homes that we can build faster and at a higher quality in a factory. And that's what's at the backbone of our call it solution or platform. We're giving our solution gives our building team, the tools to perform higher value tasks and to automate, tasks that traditionally have been dirty, dull, or dangerous for them. And it just makes our approach that much more powerful. Our solution really has a few different parts. Namely, we're using offsite manufacturing techniques that were used at Amazon Robotics, which is where 3 of our 4 co-founders came out of. We are incorporating a lot of the technology they use there in our vertically integrated design build service. And what that means is, we have a flexible yet efficient solution to building homes that we like to refer to as allowing us to do mass customization. So if you think about a building in a factory, you might think about an assembly line where everything's done in series. We've optimized our factory layout to be so that things can be done in parallel, and it's a lot more flexible. And I think, as you'll see, it allows us to build a lot of different housing types from one location in one factory, rather than having a unitary assembly line like an auto plant. What that means is we can build faster. We can use and rely on less skilled labor there to save money. That is not to say we aren't using labor. Our build team is basically managing this whole program from our factory floor. We're just giving them the tools to do it more efficiently and effectively. And that translates into a lower cost. Right now, our starting cost to developer customers who we selling our design build product to is around $275 a square foot. And, we fully expect to be able to improve on that. And I think that compares well to most traditional site building costs around the country. And our customers like it because they're dealing with a single source of contact. We own the process from original planning and design all the way through certificate of occupancy when it's issued to us, and the customer can take over or move in. It all starts with a team, Jessica being one of the 5 members of our leadership team. They have a broad experience across a variety of functions and deep experience in robotics, lean engineering, lean manufacturing, architectural design, and in Jessica's case, real estate development. And they brought together a team that is similarly talented, I think mission driven. I think all of us are there because we like to solve big problems, and we see this as a huge opportunity to do so. As I mentioned, 3 of the 4, Vikas, Aaron, and Felipe come out of Amazon, and I think collectively they got together and recognized that a lot of the tools and technology that they were using in Amazon fulfillment centers could be applied in a way that, maybe could benefit society in terms of addressing climate and housing. And they've done just that at Reframe. So what does this sort of solution look like in practice that we've come up with at Reframe? It's we like to think of it as digitizing the value chain in home construction. We say pixels to parts to occupancy permits, and that kind of captures the entire system we brought together in our factory. So we're using technology, like I mentioned, across the value chain, whether it be in software that the build team uses on the iPads that they are following building instructions on the floor, robotics that do our framing, some of our sheet good movements, and automation throughout the whole process. All of that, again, is how we're reimagining traditional on-site construction. We're doing so in a factory. And as I mentioned, it still requires manual work, but we're taking some of those, the 3D dirty, dangerous, and dull. We're automating those and allowing our build team to focus on the higher value finished stuff. So it's kind of a fully integrated approach, and it starts here on the left side is the pixels, and in a two-dimensional program we use called Revit, which is a standard architectural software for renderings and plans. And then we moving over to the right is our engineered design segment, where we're using a 3D program called Onshape to model the volumetric boxes that we're actually going to build in the factory. And that provides the visual representation that ultimately gets fed into our internal software that the build team uses. And then the parts is really the meat of what goes on in the factory here in Andover. And that's a combination of, the automated activities that we're using, robotics and machines like a CNC router and saw with a printer to actually cut dimensional lumber and mark each piece so that the build team knows where it goes in a particular panel or in a particular module. So as I mentioned, the build team has a set of building instructions that's digital to them. There's no paper plans, and hopefully there's not a lot of use of tape measures, because all of that is being done up front on the automated side of our factory. And then finally, we have to, once modules are finished in the factory and they're ready for shipment, they get delivered to a site where we, as a fully integrated design build general contractor, have already done the site work. We've already installed the foundation, and they're setting each of the boxes on the site and buttoning up the building so that we can pass final inspection on site and get that final occupancy permit. So here is a video of we call it the journey of a Reframe home. This is our first production build out of the factory in Andover. We delivered it, I believe, last summer. There was an open house in September, but I think this video is a great depiction of kind of how the process, that digital process I just walked through, works in reality.
How many bedrooms is that, Sean?
It's 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, 900 square feet.
What's the price of that delivered?
I believe that was about $325,000. Jessica, is that in?
Yeah, it's about 300,000. Pretty much everything we're building right now is priced between $275 and $300 a square foot, and that's an all-in price. So that is, from the first time we don't use paper. So from the first time we start designing in Revit until certificate of occupancy. So we manage all the site work. We connect to utilities. We do foundation work. when we're doing all the design.
Right, and it comes, as, well, I don't think you'll see appliances going in, but, it comes with all the fixtures and appliances set in place prior to delivery.
So that cost is, that doesn't include land though, right?
No.
Does not.
Does not.
And infrastructure?
So it assumes that infrastructure is available on the site.
But your house, the 300 square foot, that's turnkey, power's on, heat's on,
Yep, everything's in there.
everything's in, everything's hooked up, done.
Yeah, yeah.
And includes
And-
the are they on a slab usually or on a crawl space, or how do you usually do those?
This
So
this one was-
yeah, you want to?
Yeah, this one was, we because of the site conditions and also because of our commitment to using less concrete, we use helical piles as the foundation with a crawl space for utilities underneath. I think there were 8 piles, Jessica, is that correct, that we drove?
There were 16. You can't see it
16,
here
all
because
right.
they're just a grade beam, but yeah.
But it's a heated crawl space.
It's not,
Well,
it's
not
really just an airspace.
airspace.
So it's so the from the bottom of the house to the ground, there's airspace underneath that.
Yeah.
So how would that work in Vermont? Because you can't really have, unless you have a special space for your water and sewer lines, and if you've got any water lines underneath the floor system, if air's underneath there, it's gonna freeze up. How do you deal with that?
So in this one, it's basically it's fully ventilated on either side, and then the bottom of the structure is sort of sealed the same way you would seal a boat. So it's very waterproof. We're using the helical piles where we can, but we're not using them on every site depending on site conditions. So we're doing 2 projects in Somerville, Mass right now, and one is slab on grade and the other is a combination of a concrete ground beam and the piles. So we're adjusting based on the conditions of the site and the needs in terms of both site conditions and utilities.
So what is a slab on grade would be more than the 300 square foot, or is that would a slab on grade be the 300 too?
So we are finding that the helical piles are pricing a little bit better than poured concrete, but the price is inclusive of either.
And all the mechanicals would be within the confines of the house, not under the house?
Yeah, on this one, they're on the backside of the house. And the biggest one is the controls for the solar panels.
So are these all flat roof designs?
No, this is a flat roof design actually, because the town of Arlington where this is, they had an ADU piece of legislation that came in front of Massachusetts, right? We just had a piece of legislation here that passes ADUs statewide, but Arlington had a height restriction of 20 feet. And we were really bumping up against that 20 feet in order to get the largest unit we could for them so that they would have it as an affordable rental unit. So the flat roof was really a response to just trying to maximize how much space we could get in, and it worked on the site, but roof lines can be pretty variable. I don't know, Sean, if you want to, do you want to go forward to the Devon's renderings?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this will be a project we're building the second part of this year, and these are the 12-unit duplex development in Devon's, Mass, which is a decommissioned military base. So as you can see, the roofs are pretty different than the ADU.
And if you do a duplex, is the 300 square foot, is that whether you do a duplex or a single home? Is it, is it cheaper to do a duplex than a single family home, or how does that?
Yeah, so we are, so our goal is to be pricing 275 to 300. What so, you know, the ADU on a per square foot basis is probably our most expensive product right now. But we're, you know, the more units we build, the less expensive. You know, similarly, I mean, one thing I've been really excited about, and I've talked to a number of community development corporations in Massachusetts about, and also a few municipal groups like yours, is that this project came about because the local community development corporation had a number of small properties and they wanted to increase density, taking advantage of the ADU legislation and some upzoning in the town. And so this is on the backside of a rental duplex that they already owned. And I think that there's a really cool opportunity for either communities that own land that's sort of too small to do a big thing on, but too big to do a small thing on, or you know, it can be more expensive to do smaller projects. I think this ADU, which we've also designed it as a standalone starter home, you know, it's a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath home. So I think it's a really interesting opportunity to look at doing at scale on scattered sites throughout a community. And, you know, one way we do control costs is if we're doing, you know, a group of them for a single customer, that also, it moves the needle the same way that a duplex does. Or I think Sean was just going to quickly show you that we have you know, our portfolio is really a 1 to 40 unit portfolio. So we have a number of typologies. We're currently building a triple decker, or we're building 2 triple deckers in the city of Somerville. And we are on the design boards for a series of 40 unit buildings that'll be on the North Shore in Massachusetts. So we're doing small buildings at various densities in different locations.
So assuming the majority of the ones you do are on, obviously, town water and town sewer, probably, correct?
Yeah, we've been researching. Yeah, we've been researching some septic alternatives, working with some groups on Cape Cod that are really really interested in alternative septic, because they found it to be such a block for development. And so it's on our research agenda. We have not done anything on septic yet, but I think it's really important. I mean, is all of Manchester on sewer, or is it just your sort of downtown core? Yeah.
In the core, it is. I mean, that's the problem we run into around here, is there's a lot of, if you're not in the center of town and you're on a septic tank to put an ADU in or whatever, you're adding to the septic system that's currently there. And it might not suffice for adding a bathroom and a kitchen. And that's the tough thing you run into around here. But if there's different septic designs that would work and aren't very expensive, that would be a good thing to know.
Yeah, and one of the things.
I mean, there are some very small septics that one of our architects came from a national sustainability research lab, and he's been looking into them for some different projects. And I actually can send you an email. A woman we're working with on Cape Cod is doing a big alternative waste treatment tour in a few weeks on the Cape. So if you want to come spend a day down there, I think it's actually going to be a really interesting conversation just about this, about how to make things more affordable. So I've been working with her a little bit on helping to plan that.
What I was going to mention is that one of the unique things that the Vermont has on a statewide level is that any property in the state of Vermont or parcel that's deemed viable for a single family home is viable for a duplex.
Oh,
So that, you know, and that's in an effort to try to expedite housing development in general.
yeah.
So I think that any place that we can bring the total price down. And, you know, Tim, the questions about the sewer line were coming from a resident plumber.
Also,
So, you know, that's why it's very clear. I think one of the unique things here in Manchester is that we are in possession of a large parcel of property. The challenge right now is that it is not currently accessible by a sewer line that's large enough to maintain it. That's it, that's it.
It's not access,
Right, right,
but it's accessible.
right, yes. So there would be some work, and I think obviously between, you know, to Tim's point is that obviously here in Vermont, I think our soil composition would be quite different than in the Cape. But, you know, you can't go 2 feet without hitting 17 boulders that are the size of a truck.
Right.
ledge.
Or ledge, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I might have missed this. What is your process or time frame in terms of if someone were to say, I want a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, you know, peaked roof house. And we've got the site already identified, or it's already prepared with, you know, potential infrastructure already in place. What is the time frame that you guys are working on now for getting that to occupancy?
So, so to be, you know, totally transparent about where we are as a company, right? We have this 900 square foot cottage home product. We have a triple decker product, and we have the duplex product, which is shown here as connected by a carport, right? But they can also be done as townhomes or separate single families. For those, we are, you know, we'd be right now, if somebody had a site, we'd be able to deliver them this year. And the turnaround time is like in the 4 to 6 month area, probably. If someone were to say, I really want to work with you, but your typologies don't work. Or if you particularly if you as a board were to say, what you're doing is really interesting, but these typologies don't quite match what we need in Manchester. What we really need is an 1,100 square foot home, or, you know, 2,500 square foot home. Those would have longer lead time just because we are in the process of refining our product line. And so, you know, each new product probably takes an extra sort of 3 months in design. But, you know, so right now we're in a position where we could deliver additional of the prototypes that we have in 2025. And generally, you know, I would say our schedule's 20 to 40% shorter than traditional construction. We're really on the site for a very short period of time. So almost everything's happening in the factory, and then we're on the site. You know, it depends on what kind of foundation we're putting in, but maybe 6 weeks on the site, including, you know, an allowance for 4 weeks of site work, and then 2 weeks it really takes us 1 week to button up, but 2 weeks just to make sure, you know, we have a little cushion.
Now, you would have to build your mini factory somewhere near here, though, wouldn't you? Would you not?
No.
So
Because it's a
we
50-mile
are,
radius, as I understand it, 50-mile radius, so much.
yes, we are. So one thing that's been interesting about our journey is that I actually took my job a year ago thinking that my job was to figure out what area we were going to go to next. But the demand in New England has been so big that we're currently trying to figure out where our second factory is going to be. But right now, our plan for Vermont is more is that we think we can service it from Andover because we're so close to the border, and we feel like as long as we're within probably about 150 miles of the factory, we're in decent shape to do a delivery ourselves. There definitely, I think, over time are going to be more factories in New England, and particularly we'll have this larger factory that'll probably open beginning of next year. We're still trying to figure out the location, but we could service Manchester from where we are right now. Would probably be the plan if we were to look for something in the next year or so.
Did you say you have a site in mind for Vermont for a factory? Did you say that?
No.
We are trying to figure out where our expanded factory is going to be, because right now we're in about 17,000 square feet and our ideal factory size is probably 25 to 50,000 square feet. So we're a little crunched right now. So we're not positive where the next factory is going to be. We're in the process of trying to locate that.
So it could be, we have a very large piece of property. So you could conceivably build it on this land that we have? We have over
It's-
60
yeah.
acres?
Yeah, it would depend on, it's a combination of site and pipeline, but one thing that we're pretty excited about is that because we do a really high level of finish on the panels that we're using to build our volumetric boxes, we have the ability to build the panels in the factory that's sort of stood up in Massachusetts, and then ship them to a factory that would be closer to where you all are and have the volumes put together there. So I think we would kind of look at the exact, we're still triangulating locations. So if we'd certainly be really interested in looking.
Yes, it'd be great. We could have you look at the property and see if there's a opportunity there, because it's a large piece of land and the housing could be right next to your factory.
One,
In some
Yeah.
case.
one question that I have, and I know we're a little, it's fine. I think we're looking at what we have left on the agenda for tonight, but one of our biggest challenges here is just labor, right? And, I think you've raised the point that you're a single point of contact. Would you be bringing your own concrete team from Massachusetts, or would you be using local services at all? Excavation, like all those things, because that's a lot of times the biggest challenge is just lining up that work. So is that something that you bring with you?
Yeah. So we have two two licensed construction supervisors on our team in Andover. Our build system is set up so that people can pretty much come in the door unskilled and be a part of the build process really quickly. We're pulling sort of step-by-step, process-by-process instructions off of our 3D models so that our ADU was built 60% by carpenters' apprentices. So we're able to invite a lot of people into the trades that haven't traditionally been there. So depending on, sort of exactly where we're talking about location and production, we would, we'd likely be using labor in our factory, but we have an ability to bring folks in that probably, are sort of outside of what's getting counted right now in labor shortage numbers. We're gearing up to do some of our own foundation work, but right now we've primarily been using more local general contractors, if in the case where we're pouring a concrete foundation, and actually for piles as well. So it would just depend on, exactly what the site looked like and what timing looked like. We have a really good network of people we're working with. We like to employ people locally when we can, but we also set up this company in part because the labor shortage is so extreme. And, folks that want to come into the trades are having a really hard time finding anybody who's skilled enough to take them on and train them. So, part of the our whole reason for being is to try to think about different ways to address the labor problem.
Jessica, do you guys mill your own wood on site, or is the wood brought from another mill?
We buy it milled.
So wouldn't it make sense to if you moved a factory, build it closer to an existing mill to cut cost?
I think that is one thing that's a conversation that we'd love to have. Because we've specifically designed our system so that it's pretty agnostic on materials. And part of the idea of that is that we want to be able to source materials differently based on where the factory is, right? Because whatever we can do to help address to help do, execute on our carbon reduction mission is really critical to us. And I think, absolutely like a New England strategy that focuses on locally milled lumber would be awesome.
Has Reframe worked outside of Massachusetts, anywhere further north in New England? Vermont?
So we're talking to a developer in Vermont. We are hopefully like just moments away from signing with them on a collection of our accessory dwelling units and some larger single family homes. We also have a letter of intent in place for a project in New Hampshire, but we have not we've not like executed on a contract. I think we're like, ask me in a month and I think we'll have a project going in Vermont. But right now we've delivered one customer project and the next two we have coming down the line are also in Massachusetts.
Yes, the reason I ask is Vermont energy standards is pretty high. And that would concern me on the cost.
You mean building performance standards
Yeah.
or the amount of energy that
Energy performance standards.
Yeah.
And my understanding is that new construction is going to require spray foam across the board in this state.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't cover this piece of the presentation in detail, but this first home we built was Passive House FIA certified and also net zero. So, we're just with our base product or exceeding Massachusetts stretch energy code. I don't know the code in particular in Vermont, but I imagine it's similar to Massachusetts, and we're more than producing a tight energy efficient building with at the numbers we were talking about before.
What type of heating system in the houses?
It's all electric.
All electric? So
Yeah.
electric baseboard?
We're using the ADU has a heat pump system. We're using mini splits in
Mini
the
splits.
triple deckers.
The thermal energy network, that's in the, you've been working with heat at all, the Massachusetts company that we were gonna also present tonight?
Yeah, so I've worked with them in previous roles. We have not, Reframe hasn't expressly been connected with them. So appreciate very much your connecting us with them.
Carl, do you have any questions? That was a great segue because we have an energy committee here in Manchester as well. And Carl Buchholz is the chair of that. And he's been taking everything in. In terms of the energy efficiency, I mean, a passive would likely meet most of the standards of Vermont without any question.
Assuming you have some kind of air-to-air heat exchanger to get fresh air into the houses.
You might not have been able to hear. He said, do you have air-to-air heat exchangers?
ERVs?
So we have an ERV, yeah, there's an ERV system in the ADU, and there'll be a similar one in the triple decker.
Do you know what the R factor are on the walls and the roof?
R factor for the roof and the walls.
Sean, do you have that slide? And I can send you a few. We have I can send you a few slides unless it's in here. I wasn't sure if it's in the appendix. We can send it as follow-up.
Yeah, I just know the blower door test was, what was it, 0.47?
It was 0.25. It was negative
Negative.
25.
For the HERS.
Negative
for the HERS.
25.
Yeah, for the HERS, yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious, if it's okay if I ask a question back, I'm just curious on the spray foam requirement, is the code actually specifying spray foam, or is it just specifying a level of performance that you think you can only get with spray foam?
My understanding is it's the level of performance, but in order to qualify for it, you almost have to go spray foam.
Okay. Yeah, that,
My understanding is Vermont standards is one of the toughest in the country.
yeah, I mean, that's one reason why New England was a really good place for us to start is because, you know, we have an ethical commitment to carbon reduction, but we also, you know, have a business commitment to it. And so starting in a part of the country where we have some of the best standards in terms of energy meant that we were, you know, serving a market that needs a level of expertise. And two things that I think are really nice about modular when it comes to the building performance. One is, you know, you're building a structure that you not only have to put on the back of a truck, which is I think what most people think about when they think about sort of the logistical piece of modular, but the real key is being able to lift it with a crane, right? And so there's a lot of movement, which means that you already have to be structurally just much more solid than what a baseline would be for stick built. So that sort of level of material and precision sort of gives you an in and a lot of space for things like extra insulation, extra air sealing. It sort of naturally lends itself to that. And then in addition to that, you know, I've been on job sites for 20 years watching, and, you know, increasingly in the last 10 years, watching people trying to make things more airtight, and then watching our crew do it in the factory last winter. It's amazing that you can achieve a good level of airtightness when you're out in the elements. You know, it's not sort of technically complicated, but just having the level of precision to really check everything and having a climate controlled environment so you're sure everything is drying properly. It really gives us a leg up in terms of being sure that we're producing high performance homes.
So you would be open to exploring the idea with Heat or another thermal energy network company to explore the opportunities there?
Yeah, I mean, we're constantly trying to figure out the best way to the best way to ensure that we have really high performance buildings. So that would be great.
So did you go through all your slides, or did we?
No, I think we covered most of it in the questions, but
Okay.
yeah, no, so I guess I don't have much to add except thank you for your time, and it was very good feedback to hear your questions from Vermont, state that we would like to be in here in the future. So.
Well, big question I have for you guys. You guys are, and I'm speaking for myself, not the whole committee, but you guys are located in Mass, which is one of the most expensive states in the US to live in, aside from California. And that's where you put your factory. And so your cost of building is going to be higher just based on where you are. What would it take to, how many houses would we have to order from you guys to get a 3-bedroom home at 175? How many homes would it take in bulk to get that price?
And you're saying 175 a square foot
Well, 175 for the house.
for the house.
A square foot.
No, for the $175,000 for a 3-bedroom, how much do we have to buy?
What's the square footage?
1,000 square feet.
Oh, I don't know. Let's say it's 15 by 40.
He wants a quantity discount.
Right, I want a quantity discount for a
It's
3.
not a negotiation.
Right.
I just want to know how many,
Yeah, 3
just a
bedrooms.
ballpark idea, how many we'd have to order?
It's a little, hold on. I'm not going to give you I think it's a little, I don't have an exact answer for you. I'm happy to kind of think about
If you
it.
think about it and get back to us on that.
Yeah.
Because, we're looking at trying to build affordable homes. We're trying to keep the homes somewhere around 200 to 225 at the most. 300 is, even for a 2-bedroom, that's far out of our range, and it's not really going to fit a family of 4 easily.
Yeah.
There's certainly a need. for
There's a
that
need,
price
there's a
point.
need for all house sizes.
Right.
We're gonna say a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom. But we're looking at, the reason we don't have construction here locally is because the construction has no place to live.
Right.
So we're trying to make a home that someone who does construction can afford to live in. and 300 plus the house, the cost of the land and the infrastructure, we're looking at close to 400 when it's all said and done. And that's going to be pretty high for someone
Yeah.
to, $500,000's a lot in this area. Now, I know around Boston, that's a lower end, but here it's very difficult for us.
Yeah, no, I hear that. Are there are there workforce housing ownership funds available at the state? I'm not like trying to put a deal together. I'm just curious. I did a lot of affordable home ownership work when I was working in municipal government.
There's various levels of opportunity.
Mhm.
I think right now with kind of the political climate, we're not sure what will still be available.
Right.
There is certainly an initiative by the state treasurer, which is the 10% for Vermont program, where, there are potential investments or, funds that are available to potentially offset some of the costs. And really and Leon's correct. I mean, we have a commitment to try to drive workforce housing. It does also not mean that, I personally would love a 3-bedroom house at $400,000 and $450,000, because right now, typically on our market, if you can find a house that's $300,000 to $350,000, it needs $100,000 to $150,000 to $200,000 worth of work in order to get it to even close to a brand new home that's energy efficient and prepared. So I still think that there's a place in the market here for what you have. And it also breaks the mold, I think, and potentially thinks outside the box of what most of us think of as modular homes.
Agreed.
Vermont has a lot of modular homes already, but they are mobile homes, they're trailers. And that has a certain negative connotation, especially for a younger generation. We've asked even people that, we know, if you had the opportunity to move from, because we have a lot of people who work here in Manchester, but live 45 minutes to an hour away. And we've asked the question, if you had a mobile home, a double wide mobile home, brand new for X, would you consider it? And the answer is no.
Yeah.
So I think for that part, I think you have a great perspective because a lot of the styles of the homes, for instance, that are being built around Chittenden County have a very similar, like to your duplex model that you had there.
Mhm.
It's kind of the modern farmhouse style that kind of fits that mold. So, well, I personally want to thank you. I think this was fantastic. All of us were taking notes. And I think continuing the conversation to make sure that we have this as a potential option, whether it means, having more, we would love to hear once that Vermont project gets ground. I think that's really exciting. And maybe there's more ways to work together, whether it's, more education and resources for our community, connecting them to you. Because, Leon, you look at modular systems a lot.
Yeah, there's Germany, Canada, and they've been doing it for years with using CNC machines and.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
And the cost is lower, I know, in Canada. And that's
Right.
that's the.
But the challenge, like you've stated and what you guys have all stated, is that you are much closer.
Yeah.
So anyway, I know we went over a little bit longer than 30 minutes. Thank you for giving us more of your time. We really appreciate it. This was very enlightening, and I think you guys are onto something.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's really
Right
exciting.
direction. It's the future.
Thank you. We'll follow up. We have a short deck that has some of the performance statistics on our ADU that we'll send over to you. And thanks for having us. It's really
No, thank you.
exciting the way you're thinking, and it sounds like you have a lot on your plates, but also like a lot of good minds and good questions. So we really appreciate the time.
Thank
If you have any good ideas on septic systems, let us know, please.
I'm telling you, you are getting an invitation to Cape Cod in March, which is a great time to visit it.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I'll be there.
Okay, all right,
And,
cool.
and I'll make sure you get an invitation to come back to North Shore Books.
Yeah, well, you guys had the jelly mill, right?
We did, yeah.
Yeah,
It's no
I'm
longer
still
here.
really mourning that place.
Yeah. Y'all are.
Yeah.
Many people are.
Yeah, but I'll be happy to come to the bookstore.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Gabe.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So I'm not going to discuss Fair Housing Month. We can bring that back up next time. The idea behind that was that Chittenden County has some events, resources. I think we were talking about potentially grants available, potentially have some sort of something together in April. Yeah. So next is public comment. Not much here. Did you you said?
I don't have a comment right now, except I would like to attend more meetings. That's me.
That's fantastic. Invite all of your friends, please. And is there anything else between us?
When is our next meeting?
That's the next piece. So I know we went to 5 weeks on this meeting. I have a commitment for my family on the 13th. You do as well. Yes, you do.
Oh, I do, yes.
Yes. We have our kids' concert at MEMS.
Yeah.
And we get to go there and enjoy the one song that they perform.
Yep, wait for an hour. for that
yeah.
one song.
But would we be open to March 6th? Thursday, March 6th.
Yeah, I already looked, it's fine with me.
Good. Should be good.
It should be
That's
good. All right, well then,
So
our next meeting is on March 6th. I will be reaching out to you guys on kind of the steps that we want to go through on the recommendations. And I will put together and distribute the recommendation for the select board. And we'll get that, the next meeting is on it's on the 18th.
I was just gonna say, if you get a chance to take a look at that housing trust fund document I sent you all, and just,
Yeah,
for maybe what our recommendation is when we get together next. It's
Yep.
partly that or not, just it's there.
I mean, the work has been done.
Yeah, pretty
Let's-
much.
let's use it. All right,
Thank you.
Adjourn.
we have a motion to adjourn.
I second it.
You have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Sent out an email to our membership in particular to promote this.
Recording
summer
stopped.
housing For them.
Cool. I want to see that in action.
Take advantage